And welcome back. Our next session, remote collaboration, virtual conferences, the end of distance and the future of work. Uh, this panel will be moderated by Charlie Fink and also features Anand Agarwala from Spatial Labs, Jesse Havu from Glue Collaboration, Alex Holland from Vero Bella. Please take it away.
Hey, everybody. I'm Charlie Fink. Most of you know me as a columnist from Forbes. I also teach XR at Chapman University, and I write books about AR and VR. So I'm here to talk about my new book about remote conferences and about remote collaboration and virtual conferences. And I want to tell you a story about how we ended up doing this. But first, I want to give a big thank you to Spaces. Spaces is a great location-based entertainment company that spawned out of DreamWorks that was having a lot of success with a Terminator attraction. And they were opening several in Asia and a couple in the United States, and then the pandemic hit. And they did what any good entrepreneur would do. They pivoted as hard as they could and as fast as they could. And they came up with this remote collaboration platform that has a internet browser, and it lets you participate in Zoom calls as an avatar. Right now, they're working with Lumi. Lumi made this wonderful avatar. Those of you who know me see I'm pretty well embodied by it. You hear my voice, you see my gestures. So thank you, Lumi, and thank you, Spaces. And thank you to the sponsors of the book. This was an academic project. It started out as a not-for-profit. That meant we couldn't print any books. You couldn't have a fancy Kindle edition. You just put out an ebook like another ebook on the internet. So we were fortunate that people came in, they saw what we were doing, and they believed in it. So let me tell you how we got there from here. I teach at Chapman University, and we, like everybody else, were exiled in March. Fortunately, we were working with Oculus Quests. The university had the foresight to purchase 25 of them, and we were using them in our class. VR AR 340 was a landscape of XR. So we were surveying the industry. Oops, hey, I teleported. We were surveying the industry for collaboration platforms that we needed ourselves to work together remotely. Now, we were using Zoom, and Zoom is good for some things. I must say, the video conferencing has caught on because it's really useful and it's really easy to use. So we use Zoom, and we traveled as a group to different collaboration sites. And there's us in Spatial. Thanks, Anand. And here we are on Zoom. So the students were my researchers, and we looked at a lot of, oops, how did that get in there? We looked at a lot of different sites. We looked at 125 sites and wrote 83 profiles. The profiles are meant to be informational. We did everything we could to pull out any kind of promotional or marketing language, because what you need is a list of their features. You need to know how much it costs. By the way, it's shockingly cheap right now. It's mostly free, unless you want to do a really big conference, because these platforms are in beta. They're still being invented. Speaking of Spaces, they use Discord. Their customers are on Discord, giving them features that they want, and they're adding them to their product roadmap. So, and there's so many companies flooding into this space, both for reasons like Spaces had, and some of them have been pursuing this for years. And, the pandemic has been good for them, and generally good for tech and good for VR. So one of the other speakers, Ted Shilowitz, was talking about silver linings, and Yeah, it's been good for VR, and I'll tell you why. The most important reason why is that VR did not have, outside of games, a compelling use case, right? Presence was not a compelling use case. But now everybody knows what VR is for. Now everybody knows that we can be together even though we have to be apart. So we broke the sites down into categories. And I'm not going to go through all 10 categories. Don't worry. I've kind of lumped them together. I mean, look, at most of these sites, can be used for education. They could be used for conferences. Many of them can also be used for training and small teams. So I don't, the categories are not that rigid, and I wouldn't put a lot of stock in what company got put in what category, but rather what the category itself is for. Now, as we looked at the industry as a whole, we recognized the problem has two aspects. We want engagement, right? I want everybody looking at me on Zoom right now to be engaged with what I have to say and what I have to do. But for you to be fully engaged, you have to have agency. You have to be leaning in. You have to be typing in that chat window, which unfortunately I can't see in Zoom. I can't see while I'm in Spaces, but you have to be engaged. And if you're just sitting there watching a live screen in front of the biggest distraction machine ever made by man, it's going to be very hard for you to be fully present. So the sweet spot is where you have agency and control and you're leaning in, and where you are fully present and there aren't things pulling you out of the simulation. Video conference calls are problematic because of the distractibility that they have. But why are they so popular, right? I mean, I spend a lot of the day on Zoom calls. I guess I used to do Skype calls a lot. And they're one click. It's the easiest thing you could possibly do. Shows up in your email or in a text, and you click it, and you're in a video conference with your friends. And the host has extraordinary controls like that, right? If you allow them, the host can control your desktop. The number one killer app of video conferencing is screen sharing, right? That's kind of how I'm coming to you right now. But if you're teaching a class, if you're doing any kind of a seminar, you're going to spend half the time screen sharing. You don't want people staring at your ugly mug the whole time. And the other thing, of course, is that they have wonderful camera features, and you can click to live stream on a number of platforms like YouTube and Facebook. So go Zoom. And guess what? There are some time limitations. You can't go over 40 minutes, but otherwise it's free, which is pretty great. And all the platforms are. Remote collaboration. So the two big things, right, are remote collaboration and virtual conferences like this. And is this going to work? Right? Or are people just going to watch it later and there's no sense of community? And, we'll see what happens, but it's hard because you're not engaged the way you are when you make a commitment to travel across the country and spend $1,200 on hotels and air and everything else. And believe me, I know how much it costs because Forbes does not cover my travel. No, thank you very much. But we're trying to do these things remotely. So let's talk about remote collaboration. There are over 24 sites in this category, good sites, credible sites, and some of the people who build those sites are going to be joining us in a little while. But here are table stakes. Do you guys know what table stakes are? In poker, it's the minimum amount of money you need to sit at the table. So showing up one time would be table stakes for you keeping your job. That's an example of table stakes. And with this many parties competing, with this many companies competing, being able to build in these features quickly with a minimum amount of friction, right? It has to be as simple as Zoom or Google Meet. And right now, of course, it's not. There's so much friction in VR, even with the wonderful Oculus Quest. The Oculus Quest you can't read, which makes it a kind of not so good business tool. But as you can see, this is a pretty substantial list, and no one has really accomplished this yet. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? Do you guys mind? I was typing. I got distracted here. I was typing my Twitter, so you can follow me at Charlie Fink. Thank you. It was distracting me to see that in my field of view. But I mean, isn't that great? I mean, how much fun is? Oh, you didn't? Yeah, you see that. You saw that. Cool. So, remote training and education. Well, again, this is where these conferences. I mean, where these platforms start to blend into one another, right? Because you can do remote training on the same platform you do education, and sometimes on the same platform you would do small team collaboration or a big virtual conference like this. The problem with these things is that there's limited agency unless you're in VR. So Coursera has, well, first of all, the benefits of getting an education on Coursera are terrific. And you can't beat the price of free. But look at that completion rate, right? But if you're paying for grad school somehow, at a place like my niece goes to USC remotely, and she's getting her MSW there. So, this remote education is out there. It's working today, but it is working with highly committed people. When you get, my thing and what I've discovered teaching is the excellent students are always going to be excellent. You could take away their school, you could take away their computer, they will find a way. The other students need your encouragement, right? They need to see you. They need to interact with you. Time check. So I don't know that that video is so good for that. I mean, there is, for establishing interpersonal relationships, in person is almost indispensable. But of course, we can work remotely once we know each other, once that trust has been established. All right, webinars, live streaming, and conferences. Well, this is a big part of the reason that I am coming to you from inside of spaces. I don't think that trying to replicate the experiences we had in the real inside, online is going to work, right? I mean, this conference is, we've got keynotes, we've got, panels, we've got fireside chats, we've got all the things that we used to go see and I used to value highly. And I valued them highly because I had made a commitment to being present. And even if I sat there fidgeting, looking at my phone and, taking paper notes, I was still present, right? There was no escaping presence. So I don't know that without presence and without agency, you're going to have a great virtual conference. There were many less people engaged on social media about this conference. People used to fly in from all over the world. I mean, gosh, AWE was so great online, but we have to make it great in another medium, in another way. We're not going to be able to take AWE and remake it in its offline image. Right? Instead, we have to invent new forms. We have to find new ways of being together when we have to be apart. There is good news in this medium, so much good news. I spoke a little at the beginning about people knowing what AR and VR are for, but look, here, let me show you this. I don't know how well you could see this, but it's a little bit of magic that they built in to this experience, right? You just throw it and it comes right back. Pretty neat. And, it's just to show you all the magic we could do in these spaces that we can't do in the real. Let's not try and remake the real. Let's try and make new places. And some people are doing that. Reggie Watts has been performing on AltSpace, and I would highly recommend it. He did this in 2017, and AltSpace was struggling at that time. They've since been acquired by Microsoft, who has done good things for them. And Reggie is back doing his thing. And AltSpace, I got to say, even with the silly blocky avatars, AltSpace has substantial engagement strategies and tools like the emoticons, which I think are hilarious. But I do want to talk about Fortnite. Oh my God, Fortnite. Do you want to talk about massive shared experiences? I got to go wide just to show you this incredible art. If you have not experienced an event in Fortnite, go see the YouTube videos, because what you will see is hundreds, well, really 100 people sharing an experience where they have agency. Now, they have agency inside of a game world, right? Which means that they have agency, quotes, with boundaries. But it was an amazing, Travis Scott was an amazing visual experience, seen 47 million times, a 12-minute experience, seen 47 million times. If people had paid 10 cents for it, and believe you me, it was worth 10 cents and a whole lot more. If people had paid 10 cents, they would have made $4.7 million in those 12 minutes. And that may be the future of the music business, but it's not just, right? I mean, the size of the Coachella, can you imagine? But it's not just the music business. The government of Finland did their Independence Day celebration using this massive concurrent Fortnite platform. And it was viewed by 700,000 people, downloaded the app, people from around the world visited this amazing artistic depiction of Helsinki in a virtual 2D, a 3D virtual world that you access through a 2D screen. That's essentially what Fortnite is. It's what Second Life is. Sorry, I would switch cameras. So the book is on sale. I think it's going to be up in the next hour or so. It's $14.95. So we've priced it so that people will have access to it. The version that is out there today is a preview version. This is you are the only people to know about it right now. The pre-sale on Amazon for the final edition of the book will start in about a week. XR Directory is where you can go to get the book, and all of the profiles of the companies that are in the book will now be included in XR Directory. If your company is not listed in XR Directory, it is free and you control the content of your listing. So now I would like to bring in the true experts in VR and AR collaboration. They represent some of the best startups in our field right now. I'll let them tell you a little bit about their companies, but we have Anand Argwala from Spatial. We have Alex Howland from Verbella, and we have Dan O'Brien from HTC. Welcome, guys, and thanks for hopping in to talk about this topic that we're all living.
Awesome. Great to be here.
So I see Alex, and the other guys are, oh, there we are. Okay. Oh, I see I'm pinned. You guys in the tech room should unpin me so I'm equal to the panelists. Oh, I need to do one thing, which is to grab my notes that we all made. But why don't you guys on the panel, one at a time, introduce yourself and describe your platforms?
Sure, I'll start. Hey, Charlie, great to be here. I'm Anand Argwala. Thank you for coming. Thanks. I didn't have to go anywhere. I'm just sitting in the same office I am all quarantine. I'm CEO and co-founder of Spatial. We've been around 3.5 years. We're an augmented collaboration company based in New York and San Francisco, doing a kind of holographic version of Zoom and Slack. We focus on Zoom in the sense of presence, like from a simple 2D photo, turn into a 3D avatar and make you feel like you're sitting right next to each other. And then Slack in the sense of kind of more persistent spaces. And then we turn the room into your monitor and let you put up all kinds of traditional content like PowerPoint, 3D models, and so on. And so We're used from all kinds of companies, from whether it's Mattel, a 3D toy company, collaborating on 3D designs and spatial, to Pfizer, healthcare companies doing general purpose collaboration, to there's actually a fashion week coming up around the world who's now going to be using spatial. So just launched recently, and pretty excited to be part of this panel. And these crazy times have been really interesting for our use case. Should I hand it off to Dan?
Yeah.
I'll take over since Charlie's.
Hey everybody, this is Dan O'Brien, longtime HTC Vive guy. Been around for a while now. I think one of the originals from the Vive team. I'm now leading up the business solutions team at HTC. We have a couple new products. Vive Sync, which is in beta today, which is an enterprise level collaboration tool. And we additionally, we work with a lot of third parties, enterprise solutions and enterprise applications, and bringing those solutions into the professional environment. So we're pretty agnostic when it comes to the different platforms that we want to support, as well as bringing our own technology to the forefront as well.
Great. Anand?
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about spatial, and then we'll jump into the topics we've selected?
Well, let's finish the introductions. Maybe I'll go next.
Oh, sorry, Yusi.
No worries. Hi
I get confused here in animation world.
That's right. So I'll speak a little, and then I'll let Alex to introduce himself as well. So my name is Jussi Havu. I'm CEO of Glue Collaboration. So we are a universal collaboration platform, so hardware agnostic play. We are VR first, so that brings the most immersive experience on Glue, but we also work on desktop, both PC and Mac, and we have developed also mobile clients. We're solving the problem that you talked about in your presentation, Charlie, bringing the physical human presence in a remote setting, similar feeling as a meeting face-to-face. Then providing the collaboration tools that people are used to in the real world meetings, giving our customers ability to customize the platform, bringing their own content, but also making their own environments, and helping them to deliver the use cases that they are looking for. As well as then I think we have spent quite a lot of time on building this for enterprise use. So what are the back-end things regarding modularity, scalability, and security topics have been on top of our mind. We're a 30-people team from Helsinki, Finland, and have been building the platform since 2016, but the team itself has been together for the past 15 years and has experience in 3D and graphics. They are pioneers in that space.
Thanks.
Awesome. And I'm Alex Howland, founder and president of Virbela. We create collaborative environments for education, for remote collaboration, and for events. We are now a subsidiary to eXp World Holdings, which is a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ. And our sister company, eXp Realty, is a company that has been operating their full business on top of the Virbela platform for the last 4 years, and have gone from 900 agents to over 29,000 agents in those 4 years. So kind of proving that you can run a complete business on a virtual environment instead of a brick and mortar office.
That's great. Well, guys, thanks for joining me, and we'll get into some of these topics. I am sorry, first of all, that we did not have a female panelist. I think that's really important today. I asked for Pearly Chen, and they sent the boss. So sometimes you can try. But let's step back for a minute. I just want to describe what these three companies do if you are not familiar with them. I asked them because I have been doing work on all three of their platforms and have been really impressed by what they're doing. And they're doing the hard thing, right? They're trying to build something for everybody and every possible kind of collaboration you would want to have with your colleagues. And that is really hard, right? It's much easier to build a switchblade, if you will, for one industry and one use. but is very, very hard to build something that is so big and so flexible. And so you have Virbela. Alex's company has a great story because their biggest customer bought the company, right? It's like Omar Khayyam buying Gillette. He liked it so much he bought the company. And it is a 3D world that you access through a 2D device, rather like Second Life. But it's simplified. And in many ways, you have a tremendous amount of agency in a 2D virtual world. And that is one of the reasons why people love Second Life so much, or its devotees do. Then, on the other hand, you have Spatial, which allows group collaboration across every platform. VR, AR, Magic Leap, HoloLens. And they also use a kind of a system to make using your social media profiles to make an amazing lifelike avatar. And we should talk about the importance of avatars and their accuracy. And then, of course, we have Glue, which is the new platform. But it too is rather extraordinary in your sense of presence and the kind of agency you have inside of it. So, and then finally, Vive Sync, and Vive Sync has a great story too, because Vive Studios was using it, because they're a widely distributed team. They have people in Japan, there's people in San Francisco, they have contractors all over the world that they use, and they were looking for a way to network together. And of course, Studios is programmers, and they hacked this thing together. And when the pandemic hit, they were letting other people use it. And then they thought, maybe it's a product. Maybe we should put it out there and let everybody use it. And again, they're using Discord and other channels to work closely with their customers to refine the roadmap. But they're terrific efforts to give us the tools we need to be together when we have to be apart. So I guess the First question, I'll go to Alex, because his platform is doing everything. Virbela is doing conferences, it's doing small teams, it's doing virtual offices. So Alex, are virtual conferences possible with today's technology?
Yes, they certainly are. And I think we actually need to find the right balance of reflecting what's done in the quote unquote real world conferences and what can only be done in the virtual spaces. I think there needs to be enough, one-to-one comparison that people aren't kind of lost. They know what to do and how to operate, but if it will never be as good as the real world. So you need to have some creativity and think about what can we do in these virtual worlds that you can't do in the quote-unquote real world. But yeah, we've certainly been running some events. Laval Virtual had, I think, over 6,500 people logging in from many, many different countries over 3 days. A couple of weeks ago, we ran our own shareholder summit, which was supposed to be at Disney. And we had over 10,000 attendees over the course of a week attending our own shareholders summit with expo hall and keynotes and breakout sessions and networking events. All the typical things were happening there. I think you saw and attended our first attempt at a music festival last Friday, and some things to improve on, but I was pretty impressed that we actually got live performers, up on 3 virtual stages operating in
I liked all the dance move options you had added.
That's the beauty of the 2D piece, right? We can just program those in. You don't have to do it yourself in VR.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fun too.
Exactly. So Dan, I know you're here to talk about Sync, and that enterprise collaboration is really a big part of what you're building for the enterprise group. Tools to bring people together and make companies more productive using new technology. But HTC has also last week made a $3.3 million investment in the company that builds a platform called Engage, which was originally created for education, but you guys used it for your VEC conference that's in China. And thereafter you purchased the company. So, or I mean, you made an investment in the company. So, and then I talked to Alvin Graylin, who said, your colleague who runs HTC in China, and he said there was going to be a business built in China, at least, that was going to start to basically resell and repackage conferences on Engage. So can you tell us more about that?
Sure. And to be clear, I mean, HTC has a long history of investing in other companies and other solutions and bringing those to market. And we'll continue to do that. Engage is one of those companies that we're really proud of that investment. I think it just shows our commitment to the industry as a whole. We would develop our own software like Fink, and that we would also invest in other applications like Engage. Engage is an incredible platform, a little bit different than what we're doing with Fink, but really focused on things like large industry events and being able to do that. I think overall, just as being able to have that in China and have a version of it that is branded, specifically for China, there's different rules over there and how you have to engage and what your software has to be compliant to. And so we want to make sure that we can actually be a global player with global distribution that can bring our solutions into other markets like China properly, as well as being able to work with those companies in non-China markets and Western regions. So I think that's a great opportunity for us. I do think that overall, things like Engage, things like what Alex and his company are doing in large industry events, even after we get through this pandemic, which is really tragic and hard for everybody to work through, I think there's going to be an element of large scale events that's going to really benefit from this situation. And there's going to be a permanent, side of virtual exposure and being able to go to these types of events and large scale events, whether it's conferences or whether it's, music events or entertainment events. A lot of this stuff, a lot of people are going to actually find that, wow, I can actually bring in more people, more spectators, more engagement by having these virtual platforms in addition to the physical in-presence capabilities.
So Anand, I want to ask actually you and the other panelists about the nature of remote collaboration, because, in developing your platform, you have worked with many groups and observed many people. Can you tell us what are you seeing? What are you learning from watching these early users, and how's it affecting your roadmap?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think we started, if you think about how spatials evolved for us, right? Like we started with just like blocky head avatars and it was even actually just one player. And we just kept evolving it in ways that we would just notice hey, what is the part of the experience that sucks and kind of improve that. One thing we always think back to is we still use audio only conference calls. It's crazy that the amount of audio only, audio only conference I'm still on. And I think, one of the interesting things in that is that the voice has so much body language in it. And I think that's actually been something that we've been able to ride on in this kind of remote collaboration wave. But there is something that happens when you see and hear someone in 3D. I mean, it happens, all the time when we had a couple experiences with people as we were getting into spatial last week, and they're like, whoa, I haven't been next to somebody in 2 months. And this, you're tripping my brain. And so I remember the first time it used to happen to us is that literally, you'll put the headset on, you'll see 10 people in your environment with you. Your brain gets tricked. You see them in 3D, you hear them in 3D as they move around you. And then when you take the headset off, you kind of get lonely. Wait a minute, I thought I was gone, And so it's just fascinating to see these kind of low level mental things kind of click in when you jump into this remote collaboration.
How about you, Juicy? What's the nature of remote collaboration, and what are your seeing teams do there?
Yeah, so I think looking at the use cases where this type of platforms fit well is, we're calling ourselves universal collaboration platform. So basically, any type of interaction that has been taking place face to face can be conducted on Glue. But what seems to be resonating well with the companies during these times is mainly kind of three types of things. They're trying to figure out how to engage with their customers and how to present their products in an engaging way without having this face-to-face meeting ability, which has been very critical for the sales and marketing activities. So that's clearly one. And ability to customize the scenes to your branding and showcase your products, I think it's key in those use cases. Then, of course, being able to better work with your colleagues within your organization, which is kind of the meetings that we're having every day, which take place in mostly in video conferencing. And a term that I've heard recently is Zombie, which refers to this New York Times article by the associate professor from INSEAD, talking about how kind of even for the extroverts, kind of spending time several hours a day on Zoom drains your energy totally different way than it does on kind of actual real face-to-face meetings. And the good thing about the virtual collaboration through avatars is that it's a lot less draining for the participants, because you're not actually need to be showing yourself on the camera like I have to do now when I'm talking. But you do that through avatar, which make it less draining. So for back to the use cases, I think any internal meetings where you need to have a more engaged environment, as well as then externally, whether it's your partners or customers, there are good use cases for these.
So Dan, what are table stakes for virtual collaboration? What do you think the minimum amount of and the type of features you would need to really make this a robust product that companies had to have and that you're able to charge for as Zoom does?
Well, I think when you're thinking about enterprises and their needs, it really needs to be intuitive and simple to set up. It needs to be secure, and meaning, you can't have anything, for a corporate environment behind a firewall. You can't have anything at risk for these companies. I think that it needs to be some basic features of, just being able to engage. Simple avatars are really required with natural gestures. The last thing you want is distractions from the actual conversation you're trying to have. So you want to be able to just have that simple engagement. I do think you should have universal support on the hardware so that you can have extendability. Not every company is going to choose the same hardware. I think that flexibility across those capabilities is really important. And I think it's just really important for people to just have an easy, intuitive way to actually engage. What we're going to find is a lot of people, their very, very first immersive or XR experience is going to be in a corporate setting or a corporate environment. And it won't necessarily be playing Half-Life in VR.
Right. Right. You brought up avatars, and that's obviously a topic that certainly, the first time you go into a virtual environment, at least, avatars are part of the gee whiz. So, Alex, what's your take on avatars? You have pretty sophisticated avatars, but yet they're still kind of cartoony.
Yeah, so we find they really matter in the sales cycle. And then once you actually start using the platform, the talk about the avatars goes away pretty quickly, is what we found in experience. So, the importance part of the avatar is it gives you autonomy to interact with the space how you'd like to. Go to the places you want to go to, interact with the people that you want to interact with, and have some presence. We're a big fan of, really avoiding the uncanny valley. So, we'll continue to have iterations of our avatars, but they'll always have some.
All right. Well, now you've mentioned Uncanny Valley, so we have to bounce over to Anant, because they have some fantastic and kind of realistic avatars in spatial, which I guess kind of use AI to blend together your social media photos to create a virtual you, and it's pretty eerily resembles you, although you kind of look like a ghost, but it is you.
Yeah.
So, Anand, tell us a little bit about that and how you're building that and how important you think it is.
Yeah, I think, a couple things. We don't want to, we want to be a product design focused collaboration and consumer product company, right? And so we don't think we're going to build the best avatar solution out there. We know the market, or we think that the marketplace is going to provide something. Oculus is doing a bunch of really interesting research in that capacity, for example. And so we want to just kind of be consumers of that and go ahead and build the application. But what we found is that and the other thing as a design principle we have is we don't really want people to futz with an avatar generator, having to pick a hairstyle, pick a skin color, all that stuff. You can do that. It's complex to build and maintain. And then I think we want people to just get into the experience as quick as possible. So what we did is we designed something around just taking a simple photo and getting you in right away with a likeness that looks like yourself, right? Now, yes, it is. We've heard it called anything from like uncannily real to surreally feeling like it's a safe place to like creepy, So we are definitely around that uncanny valley. But I don't know. It does give people. We'd rather give people that kind of like jump out of your seat, like holy crap, this feels like real. I mean, because it does feel after a while like you're really talking to your friend, and your brain has to do less mental math, I feel like, than looking at a more non-photorealistic version. But I mean, I appreciate why you do the other approach, but that's what's driven our thing. And I think that's the thing, for us, it's all about, when you talk about table stakes for VR or AR, yeah, you've got to be as simple to use as Zoom, and Zoom is one-click join, and you don't really have to do any kind of futzing with avatars. So imagine you have a meeting with 10 people. If all 10 people have to do create their avatar, we think that's going to be a potential, more friction than you would be used to. So that's our approach.
Yeah, and you guys, so
Charlie, can I add something to the?
Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, thanks. So I think both the schools are present in the customer side. I think there is a portion of companies who really want to see themselves look like themselves. And the challenge with the photorealistic avatars is that they're very difficult to make natural. Like the movie industry and animation, we know that even if they make it really photorealistic, that doesn't always seem very natural. And then the other way is that kind of animations and cartoons, those are easier to make, more engaging and more natural looking. And we're coming into this from Glue side on the kind of reducing the uncanny valley and kind of doubling on the expressiveness and the presence. And we have decided that at the moment in the market there isn't really a fit solution for us. So we're developing our own avatar stack, and with that we are in full control of how the facial expressions, nonverbal communication, as well as how the presence feels comes through. And obviously we also look through to make it more photorealistic as we evolve, but that seems to be the holy grail, kind of having fully natural and fully photorealistic avatar. And of course it's possible at some point, but we're coming on this from the engagement side.
The other thing I might add is that, like, we hope, for example, that your avatar kind of goes away. Like when you use a FaceTime, you don't have to create an avatar, you just get that video signal. And so we imagine an environment where there's like, cameras or screens potentially in your smart conference room or on your phone that just give you a live picture of the person's face in 3D, right? So the iPhone camera, we have experiments where we're using the iPhone's true depth camera and getting a 3D image of your face and going right into the environment. So you don't have to make up anything. You get the real presence of the user. So, I mean, hopefully avatars is something that like we can look back at 5 years from now and be like, oh, why were we fooling with those funny things?
So now let me ask you a technical question, because I know you have a background in engineering and building technology products. With regard to remote collaboration, I know all you guys have robust roadmaps, but what is the hardest thing to get right? What is the hardest piece of technology to solve?
From us, it's the UX. It's kind of the human problem in a way, right? I mean, not the problem, but like just getting this design. I mean, you're dealing with a UX paradigm where there's not really much standards. I mean, there's kind of point and click, but when you get an iPhone, you've got like all these patterns that have been developed over 10 plus generations of mobile development, the hamburger menu, pull down to refresh, swipe to dismiss, like all these UI patterns that like just don't exist in AR VR. And so you're kind of trying to get, if you want people to do more complex things in AR, VR, you've got to invent these paradigms and have them be simple to use, invest in the training, but then you invest in creating a tutorial, and then you realize after user testing that nobody can use it, so you got to revise it, right? I think the other thing that's been a challenge for us is that we are AR, VR, and 2D in the sense of mobile phone and screen, and it's just so hard to kind of what is the right UI that makes sense, that's consistent across all those platforms, and how do you kind of trade those things?
Right. Well, there's a great. I'll give a great example, and I hope you don't. It's not at your expense in any way, but there's no browser inside of Spatial, and I was kind of taken aback. But then somebody, I don't know if Jacob or somebody else at the company said, "Well, yeah, because it was built for MR." So you're supposed to have your computer and your keyboard there in front of you so you could drag stuff into the room. And so it's not just a device, or an approach, I should say, that is independent of the rest of your electronic ecosystem, right? It depends on your computer. This is also true of Verbella, right? You need to be driving your computer inside of the Verbella world, which means that you can't be multitasking and doing email. So they have a strategy that keeps you engaged and I think works pretty well. Dan, I guess so. I was going to finish that thought or not by saying, but then you built the app for the Quest, and of course you can't use a computer while you're using the Quest, and I think it was like you guys were like, oh shoot. Those people need a browser, right? Because everybody who was using it with the HoloLens had their computer or their, mobile device. They didn't, need to have you provide it. So I thought that was kind of an interesting twist. You went to a different platform and it has different demands than the AR solution had.
100%.
Really, Charlie, when you think about the really hard problems, I agree with Anand. The UX and the user experience is super critical. But that cross-platform, cross-hardware, cross-device, whether you're using your tablet, whether you're using your phone, whether you're using your PC or one of the headsets, that universal functionality and capability is what gives it real scale and function and use. That is absolutely critical to the adoption. So I think that's
it becomes a matter of accessibility, right? And if you're trying to get people to collaborate, but some people can't access, they're going to switch to something else where everyone can access. So that's certainly a challenge of trying to make it accessible to people who are pushing boundaries and might have the latest, VR headset, but also, realizing some people are on, 4-year-olds, poorly powered machines and everything.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I'm glad you jumped in, Alex, because I know that, you're really the person on this panel who is involved with doing, immersive, campuses. I mean, your campus can have thousands of people on it at the same time. So what are the kind of technical problems that you have when you have that many concurrent users in the same instance?
Yeah. So it's always a balance between what we can do that's bleeding edge versus what we shouldn't do and hold back to support users who, might be on old hardware and we're trying to do things at really large scale. So there's this kind of dichotomy of can you give a high res solution when the groups are small and then lower resolution as, people don't have the right hardware or you're trying to do things at real size and scale.
So you're going to try and sort of throttle it by bandwidth the way Netflix does.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good analogy.
So, Dan, I wanted to ask you about HTC strategy, which seems to have, definitely has pivoted to enterprise. And what can you tell us about the needs of the enterprise market that you've been hearing from customers that you want to build into both of your platforms?
Sure. And I think too, we will always maintain our consumer business and continuing down that space. But you have seen us made a very concerted effort towards driving into the enterprise space. I actually lead now the HTC Business Solutions organization for HTC globally. And the reason we actually built out a dedicated organization, dedicated team, is these customers are very, very different than consumers, and their needs are very different. Everything from security to how they buy the products to the solutions that they actually need. On the consumer side, people ask, what is the killer app? On the business side, the killer app is actually supporting your customer and supporting them not only with hardware, but multiple types of hardware, but actually solution-based sales. So bringing them actual software solutions, whether it is an Engage platform or a Glue platform with your service, hardware, services, support, platform capability and distribution, and security. Being able to secure their information, being able to allow them to operate securely as they would inside of a corporate environment, and then being able to support them. So we built out a dedicated organization that is just dedicated to actually enterprise customers and resellers and distribution, and actually supporting the industry in a proper way. Because if you try to just approach enterprise like a consumer company, you will fail. It will not go well. And B2B businesses are much more demanding and a much different life cycle in the way that you would support it. So it's also I do really, really strongly believe that from day one, the majority of when we get to early majority and mass adoption, the majority of the people that are going to actually make those decisions to actually get to those volumes in the consumer side, their first experience is going to come on the enterprise side. They're going to use some collaboration software, some training software in their corporate environment, just like they use a Mac or a computer for the first time at work. And value of it, and they're going to bring it home. So
that's great. I love the consumer, the focus on the customer. I think that's a great insight. So we're supposed to leave some time for questions. We've got a little less than 10 minutes. Are there questions? I don't see it on my interface here.
Hey, Charlie. Yeah, there are a couple of questions. If you guys are ready.
Yeah.
Sure.
One of the first questions is, how do you define what is best delivered remotely, or how do you define what is that remote collaboration versus what are those things that are best handled in person? Even combining as one of the other questions, are we at the point where we're going to see big deals have avatar handshakes to complete them, or is that still going to be a person-to-person thing that happens?
Happy to jump in there. So what we're doing is running our full business out of the Virbela platform. So we meet our customers, our potential customers, everyone right in our office, which we inhabit as a team right in our platform. And we do virtual handshakes, and we end all of our team stand-ups with hands in, virtual hands in, our avatars put in, and we do an animation hands up. And we find that the kind of psychological impact of doing that as a team is very similar to doing it in the real world. We've gone from about 25 employees to over 65 in the last 60 or 90 days. And, I have to say I'm feeling about as close to all these folks we just added who I've never met in the quote unquote real world as I did the people I have met in person in San Diego. So it's been a pretty, I'm an organizational psychologist by background, and just find it fascinating the level of presence we can get even in a 2D mode in these virtual environments.
What do you find is the difference between trying to support a large-scale conference such as AWE Online versus supporting more like strategy rooms where you've got a smaller group of people that are more closely collaborating versus being presented to?
I can try to take answer to that, because we are focusing on the smaller group collaborations. So up to 20 people. And I think it's a balance. Alex already mentioned this is a balance of fidelity of the graphics and the resolution and the overall experience that you can deliver, and the limitations of the hardware that customers are using. to then see kind of how many people you can put into the platform in a scalable way. I think the current level where the technology has its limitations, and the way the fidelity that we are choosing to deliver to our customers, which is high quality graphical experience, just do not allow those type of experience in large scales as Virbela is able to do. But I think there's an opportunities in the future to offload some of the compute from the devices themselves to edge and deliver them with the low latency kind of way in the devices themselves. So in the future, we're looking to see that high quality experience can also be scalable.
That's a really good point too, Juicy. I think that timing and the different, I think we can master really quickly those smaller environments and how people engage in them and learn very quickly, which kind of parlays into, say, like a breakout session in a larger event. But I think we're just starting to see how these larger scale events can actually be executed. And it's incredible work by a lot of different companies, from Alex's company to companies like Engage that are just getting started. Most of the major event companies, globally around the world, put on these types of scalable events. They haven't really even experimented with it yet, and they're having a forcing function today that is actually driving them there. And I think that's incredible. So I think overall, you're going to see both of these types of move and scale very quickly in today's environment.
Yeah, I think an important thing to realize too is putting on an event in person is a ton of work. It's also a ton of work to do it at large scale in these virtual environments. So you need the people to organize and support all the people in the virtual environment, just like you would if they were physically together.
Okay. It doesn't look like we have any more questions here on the board. Charlie, the one thing is definitely a lot of people interested in our book.
Yep,
and,
the new book should be on sale any minute. Please go pick it up. I'm also doing a world hopping tour of virtual collaboration sites tomorrow at 7 a.m. and Thursday at 7 p.m. We're going to visit over half a dozen sites and kind of simulate the experience of the XR Landscape survey course that we did that became the basis of the book. So if you're interested in that, you can direct message me on Twitter at Charlie Fink. There's still a few slots available for each tour. So that's how I'm kind of doing my virtual book signing, because as I said, I'm trying to do things that are native to the medium and not replicating, the way we would do a book signing or celebrate the introduction of a new book in real life. So this was my celebration. This was my book signing. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for listening, if you're still listening. And I will see you in VR and on Zoom and hopefully IRL soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, everyone, for joining us on the main stage here, the opening day for AWE 2020. We look forward to seeing you in our other sessions over the course of the next few days. And to wrap up, again, a huge thank you to our titanium sponsors, as well as our gold level sponsors. A reminder that we will be showing the Augies on May 29th starting at 11:50 a.m. And enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you very much.